Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Mr. Real.
How are you, RFM?
Groovy, baby. Groovy.
What's happening?
So much. I'm so glad that it's Friday evening. I'm so glad to be able to finally go, oh, and just relax for a second. Spend a little time with one of my favorite people in the world, Bill Real, and everybody else out there. But this has been one heck of a week. It's been unusually busy for me. In fact, on Monday, and I've got a slide for this later. On Monday, I was on the newscast. On Tuesday, I was doing the almost 6-hour viewing of the Fairview City Council meeting. And oh, thank you. Yeah, there it is. Monday evening, Mormon newscast reported on temple recommend questions for immigrants. Yeah, that was my story this week. Then Tuesday evening, almost 6 hours watching the Fairview City Council meeting live. You remember Mark, Bill?
That was a long show. You remind me of Mark.
I will remind you of Mark. Well, what happened was this, is that the council took an hour to go and talk over things before their vote. And in that hour, we decided we would take calls from people.
Yep.
And one of those calls was from this guy named Mark.
Yep.
Who had been saying some things, I think, in the live chat. And you asked him
the questions. The
You
5
asked him
questions he didn't answer.
about the temple doctrine, the temple steeple doctrine, right? And
Yeah.
you asked, when was the first time you heard that it was an integral part of temple worship that the steeple be of a certain height?
Yeah.
And there was a pause, and it was a long pause. And then the answer started coming to something else. He started talking about something else, and Bill was down on this guy, Mark, like buzzards on a gut wagon, I'm telling you. And he says, no, just answer the question. And I might have joined in as well. It's possible. So we're saying, answer the question. And he wasn't answering the question. So he said, no. And we gave him another chance and said the same question again. A pause, only longer this time. And then he starts saying something else. No. You got to answer the question. I think we did this 4 times. We posed the question. And
5.
Was it really 5?
5 questions he didn't answer. I think he did answer one question. It was an easy one at the end.
Oh, I meant the same question over and over at the beginning.
Yeah, he wouldn't answer some of them over and over and over. He wouldn't answer.
Yeah. And so then people were getting mad at us in the live chat and saying, let him talk. And I was going, no, because that is the price of admission. When you call into this show, you get asked a question, you answer it. Otherwise, be gone before someone drops a house on you.
Can I ask you a question? I know you got a sort of a.
I think you just did.
Okay. Let me ask you another one, which is, if this had happened to you and me want to defend the church. We call into some show. This is back when we are.
If we're Mark.
We're Mark. We're at a point in our life where we want to defend the church.
Mm-hmm.
We're apologetic on some level.
Yes, we are. We are the young Turks.
We call the show up, and the host of the show asks one question after the other, and you recognize inside yourself that you can't afford to answer it.
Yes.
You could answer it. Like, he literally could have answered it.
Because he knows what the answer is.
Yeah.
But he can't allow himself to say that answer.
What would have happened when that phone call ended? You had called the show, the guy asked 5 questions, you didn't answer any of them. What would have happened when that phone call ended inside of you, inside your head, your heart? Do you have any?
I would have thought, man, I am not as good an apologist as I thought I was when I made that phone call.
Yeah.
And I would also start thinking, it is very difficult to describe what Mormonism does to a person's mind, but it's probably similar to any other identity that a person takes on themselves if they're entirely invested in, not just for time, but for all eternity, and depending on seeing their family again, for it to be true, all the stuff that Mormonism does so well. But there are places in the mind, even as I studied Mormonism and church history and came up with all sorts of weird things. When you're an apologist for the church and when you want to be the best apologist that's ever been, or at least a decent one, okay? All I'm trying to say is that you study a lot. And when you study a lot, you find out all the problems that the church has. It goes with the territory. If you want to know the answers to the different problems that can come up, you have to know the problems in the first place. And that's where you're juggling hand grenades, to quote a famous Egyptologist. Okay. So I knew all that stuff. And actually, what am I talking about right now? Because I think I'm heading toward a point that I wasn't heading to originally.
Yeah, well, we'll get to your point. We were talking about the show from the Fairview Town Council and how
Mark.
Mark didn't answer any questions, and
Yes,
how
Mark.
you and I would have
How I
felt
would
about that
feel.
after. Yeah.
I would feel like I've got a problem, because if I can't answer this question publicly, then, I mean, how am I dealing with it internally? It's going to eat at me. That was the simple answer. I apologize.
No, I love it. When I was volunteering with Fair Mormon and I was doing the majority of their podcast. Again, it won the 2013 Podcast Awards, everybody, but I only say that not because, oh, Bill's so awesome. No. It's because it points out the fact that I get also to say, and I say it every time, that they won in an unfair manner by sending all the Fair volunteers multiple times a day, like vote over and over. You could vote like 100 times per IP address, and they wanted us all to vote over and over. But they did. When I was with them, I was participating in the Mormon Dialogue and Discussion Board. And I'm sure when I say this name, you're going to recognize it. Wade England.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm in a conversation.
Wade.
Yeah.
That's how he ends every one of his little comments, right? Thanks, Wade.
Yes. Not to be confused with Eugene England. These are not only very different perspectives.
Yes.
These are very different types of human beings.
Yes.
Yes.
One has an IQ with 2 digits and another with 3.
Yes. Low 2 digits, I think. Okay. So we're having a conversation about the Book of Abraham. And I think I know my shit. I know, I'm in the thick of apologetics. I think I've got this. And I weighed into trying to answer somebody's question on that dialogue and discussion board about the Book of Abraham. And Wade England private messages me and says, Mr. Real, you don't know what you think you know. And this issue is way more problematic, which, by the way, kudos to him for admitting the issue is way more problematic than the general apologetics in a normal conversation would address.
Okay, could he have done it in a less condescending way?
Yeah, no, he couldn't. This is Wade England.
It's Wade.
This is Wade England. But he notified me that when you're handling this issue, you're better off staying out because this issue is way messier than you could comprehend. And I just remembered in my head going like, this shouldn't be any more complicated. Like if he doesn't have a good answer and I don't have a good answer, maybe there's not a good answer. And I remember thinking that and going, because to point out what Mark was doing, he should have left that phone call and went, I don't have a good answer for this. The church shouldn't be doing this. I was afraid to answer the questions. Anyway, finish your story about Mark. I wanted to go down that little track for a minute.
I'm not even sure if I remember the story about Mark, but I think that we got back to where I was heading originally, and okay. I'll pick up the other thread later on if there's time.
Please.
Oh, but there was more on the slide.
Yeah,
we only got to like number 2. 3 was Wednesday evening, the Mormon Black Hawk War with Philip Gottfredson and Mary Meyer, chief executive of the Timpanogos Nation. That was a long time coming together and a lot of background preparation for that, in which I was helped much by Phil especially. Then Thursday evening, that's last night, Colch, the artist formerly known as Cultural Hall, had a really, really exciting and to me intensely interesting episode about my debate with the Midnight Mormons from 2021.
The thumbnail was puppets.
Yes, it was. It was so cute. And so I really, really liked that. And I had to watch it, right? I have to let him know I appreciate this. And going into the archives of the distant past, the dark ages. And they would play a clip, right? And then they would comment on it. And
I got to say, by the way, those felt puppet bulletproof vests, they were so adorable. They were just so cute.
They were. And poor Cardin, he's never going to live that American flag on the wrong way down.
Nope. Check out the thumbnail, folks. Anyway, continue.
He's probably out there still proclaiming he got it right. Okay. Yeah. Thursday evening, live chatting it up. So I was in the live chat, right? They were doing a love watch of my November 2021 debate with the Midnight Morons. And then tonight, Mormonism After Dark, I'm here. Oh, and by the way, today I was in the studio early putting slides together for another Radio Free Mormon episode. recording it, editing it, getting these slides ready, and with a little help from my friends, we got a great thumbnail, and it's going to be premiering tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Mountain Time. Called, excuse me.
I got it here somewhere. Here we go.
Well, there's no surprises left.
There we are. Sorry about that, but we'll skip back. It'll be great.
This is what it's called. Right. This was the new and improved title. These YouTube videos nowadays have 2 titles, and it's supposed to be a good thing. So they have a title that's like on the thumbnail and a different title in the title space below the thumbnail where you see what the title is. And this title is inspired or ripped off. And the other title is How Did Joseph Know? ... Question mark, the Jaredites. It's interesting what I'm ending up doing here with research that's going on, and also from other friends and a viewer, Chuck Kimber, I'm going to mention his name because he said I could, had sent me some information he'd found out, I think through his personal researches about the Jaredites and the Tower of Babel. And so he sent it to me. I asked him if I could make an episode on it. He said, sure. I said, can I mention your name to give you credit? He said, sure. So that's what I'm doing here, as well as in this episode, which is going to air tomorrow night. Without telling you too much about it, first off, it's 41 minutes long, okay? 41 minutes long. It is packed full of information. Some stuff you may have heard before, and actually, in some degree, all of it I had heard before, but in preparing for this, I had the most incredible experience where these massive tectonic plates shifted and fell right into place. As far as Joseph Smith and his creation of the Book of Mormon. And I'll talk about that in there. I'm not going to use that dramatic kind of language in that video, which is already recorded and edited and in the can, but you'll hear it when you get to it, I think. It's really quite remarkable.
Interesting. I want to note to the audience, folks, the phone lines are open, 662-667-6667. Also, if you're in the live chat there on YouTube, there's a pinned comment, and that has the phone number, but that also will have the URL address that you can come into the studio and join us live in the studio. And the audio quality is better that way, and we really do prefer it. But either way is great. And then also in the YouTube description down below of the episode, you'll see both the phone number and that StreamYard URL address as well. You guys make the show. We'd love for some of you to join. So feel free to call or to join in studio.
Did you see that new show? Did you see that new podcast that premiered last night, Bill?
Did I see the new podcast that premiered last night?
It was very confusing because on Wednesdays, of course, we have Mormonism Live, right? And you know the format of Mormonism Live, and we try and cover stuff and hopefully uncover things and research-oriented and fact-driven. And but Mormonism After Dark is not that way. It's much more audience-driven, which is why we're almost 15 minutes into this and we haven't taken a phone call. We will get to you, I promise. I just want to say that last night there was a show that came on, and I looked at the title and I was very confused. It was called Mormon Stories Live. And the thing that was confusing about it was it sounds like Mormonism Live, but the format isn't for Mormonism Live. The title just sounds like Mormonism Live. The format is actually the same format as in Mormonism After Dark. Did you catch that show?
I did not watch it. I know that John reached out to us and just let us know that he was starting a show on Thursdays. That's a live show. Did you have a chance to watch any of it?
I did have a chance.
Yeah. Cool. And what would you say? What would be your response in regards to it? Did you enjoy it?
I didn't really watch any of it. I did have the chance. I just didn't avail myself of it. I was doing other things.
Well, I just saw your schedule. Of course you were doing other things. By the way, I just want to note to folks, you're pointing out that you had something podcast related essentially every day here in this week for 7 days. We did a show for the Mormon Newscast last week, did one this week on Tuesday. You're coming down to Southern Utah on May 10th. This really is full-time work and then some. I was talking to my girlfriend the other day and said, I really enjoy what I do. So it doesn't feel like I work a ton, but she's like, you work way more than 40 hours. I said, yeah, RFM and I have this conversation all the time. And I'll just say, I love it. And I think you love it too. I think you've said that plenty of times. I can certainly attest to that.
I'm living the dream.
But it is a lot of work. And there are days where I'm like, I don't want to do anything today. I'm exhausted. Folks, please consider supporting the program. It means the world to us, and it's how we are able to fund what we're doing and to do this full time. So I did put into the live comments, and I did put it up on the screen a moment ago. But you can go to the donor box URL. I'll put it back up on the screen right now. donorbox.org/Mormonism After Dark. No, that's okay. You can put yours back up now.
I will.
But that is in the live chat. So, folks, you can please click that. Debbie here. Yeah, the chat and audience is fantastic on Friday, but I watched John's show. He talks too much and I missed the engagement from the others. To be honest, I didn't watch for long.
A woman of impeccable taste. Debbie,
There you go. But yeah, you know.
By the way, I hope everybody knows that I'm kidding and that I think that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And I wish them nothing but happiness and people having fun on their Thursday night show, at least half as much as folks have on our Friday night show.
And how the hell could we be pissed? We pretty much podcast almost every night or at least every other night of the week.
I have commandeered the Salt Lake Temple.
Yeah. We pretty much are doing proxy sessions all the time around the clock. So folks, please like and subscribe. Hit the like button, click the subscribe button. We're glad you're here. And again, hope that somebody will call in. And we do have one phone call there. And if somebody wants to join in the studio, we'd love to hear from you. I just want to note too, we have an episode coming Wednesday. Had you, I know you are aware of it, but have you ever done much research into the dream mine, the relief mine that is in like central Utah, where some Latter-day Saint guy had a vision and he believes that he was visited and was told where gold is, and they ended up putting a mine there and selling stock for the mine. Have you ever heard of the dream mine in Mormonism?
Sure.
Yeah.
But not a whole lot.
Yeah.
There was a reference to it. It was sort of in that the thing with Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield about the Mormons, and he was the detective who ends up crying in his garage with the book, the Mormonism Shadow or Reality book on his lap.
Yeah, I forget the name of the TV series, but yes, the short.
Terrible. I should remember this. I mean, I went
the Laffertys, right? Is it the Lafferty murders?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. That's what it was about.
Yeah.
Okay. Who knows?
Anyway, I'll just
Under the banner of heaven.
There you go.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow.
I'll just know, same as you, I knew of it, didn't know much about it. This will be Wednesday's Mormonism Live episode. I was blown away with how much entertaining, cool stuff is going to be part of that conversation Wednesday. So folks, don't miss Radio Free Mormon tomorrow. Don't miss Mormonism Live on Wednesday. I think you're going to have a couple of really good episodes here coming up. Really excited for the work that we're putting out, and hope that all of you guys are enjoying it.
Yes, if you follow all of our shows, eventually we will take over every waking moment of your life.
Yes. You know what? People got traumatized with 3 hours of church, but they're having a hell of a good time with like 10 hours of Bill Reel and Radio Free Mormon. So
I think they are.
Yeah.
They had a pretty good time with 6 hours of city council meeting on Thursday, on Tuesday.
Back to Biblioteca.
Right. So not only did Mark call in and get shamed by not answering a question that was posed to him multiple times, Sneaks called in, remember?
Yeah, Sneaks also thought he was going to do a good job defending the church.
Well, yeah. Based on his live chat, I wouldn't have thought. Yeah. He seemed like, Diamond Dave's dimmer brother. Kind of like, that's what he sounds like on the phone. I don't know what he looks like. But how are things in Mongolia, Dave?
Yeah, hope you're doing well.
And I hope you're missing this one.
You and the missus.
Yak milking time on the range.
Sneaks was causing a lot of, he pushes back pretty hard in the chat, but then he gets on the show and
he's just a little pussycat. Just rolls over and wants me to rub his tummy. Somebody stop me.
He agreed with everything we asked him. He's like, well, yeah, but pretty much.
Oh my gosh. I can't even remember the reference. It's so vague. He's like Bob Denver in The Adventures of Dobie Gillis. Boom, baby. That was tough. I think I injured something. He's like Bob Denver in The Adventures of Dobie Gillis. You know who Bob Denver is, right?
Yeah, Grandma's Feather Bed.
That's John Denver. Common mistake. Bob Denver, I'm sure you know him. He's an actor. He's on Gilligan's Island. He's Gilligan.
I didn't. Yeah, I know. So I'm looking at the picture right now of Dobie Gillis, and I'm aware of Gilligan there.
Yeah.
But Gilligan's the actor who plays him is Bob Denver.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Well, there you go. So that's Bob Denver. And could you have a picture of who? And I can't remember the name of who he played. I hardly watched any of Dobie Gillis, although it's just such a pleasant show. But he plays this beatnik.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up a picture here right now. I just need to move it over to the other screen.
This is what I envision in my mind when Sneaks called into the show on Tuesday.
This is Sneaks right here. Here we go. Let me take this off. There we are.
There he is, right?
Look at that. There's Sneaks.
Yeah.
It's a strange. I know. By the way, yes,
Maynard G. Krebs. Yes. Good job.
Does Bill not know Gilligan? I know Gilligan. I watched Gilligan's Island. I think I've watched every episode of Gilligan's Island when the reruns were playing back when I was a kid, but I didn't know who the actor was that was playing him.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go.
So there's Sneaks right there.
Yeah,
on a good day. This is as alert as Sneaks looks.
He is so hyper in the chat, and then he comes on the show and he's just like, yeah, I agree with everything you guys say, but also let's leave some wiggle room. Good old boys.
Sneaks.
Mark and there's Mark behind him, and there's Sneaks next to him.
We have to say one other thing, which is that all the tickets are gone, and just in the nick of time.
Yep.
For May 10th, when I'm going to be flying down to sunny southern Utah in Bill Reel's neck of the woods, and we're going to have a get together on the evening of May 10th at a very special place. And we were selling tickets, and we had 20 tickets available, and those got bought up. And then Bill did some magic and increased it to 35. And I'm still wondering how he did that. We're going to basically be like sardines in a can, I think, ultimately. But we'll all be there. And the 35 have now been taken. And we're really looking forward to this. And I think this will be a lot of fun. We'll open, of course, with prayer.
Yeah. And just the other note there with that, I mean, yes, we're sold out that night, but I also asked folks to reach out to us and let us know what other places they feel like they have enough of a group that could support it. And if, who would be the front person on that. And I got about 7 or 8 different emails from folks who want us to go to various places. California, I think Colorado was a place. There was some major state out east. I don't think it was New York, but something else out east.
High.
And so, when you and I get a chance, when we're not doing something 7 days a week here, if we get a chance to sit down and sort of plot out maybe 3 or 4 a year that we could do, I think it would be well worth it. And for folks to be able to enjoy that.
I know someone who would want to volunteer as our travel agent, Bill.
Who would be our travel agent?
Rebecca Biblioteca.
Look at that, Rebecca.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
That's
Rebecca.
So kind of you.
Look at you volunteering her. Nice.
Actually, I do think of somebody who would want to volunteer, and it's not Rebecca.
Yeah. This picture here, is this...
This is something that Rebecca Biblioteca created, or at least sent to me. I think she had something to do with making it. With a boy in a red shirt on top of another boy pummeling the holy shit out of him. And the boy on top says, "Let us build our temple." He's labeled the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Bullies. And then underneath, the boy underneath who's getting the shit pummeled out of him is labeled Fairview, Texas.
And he's got his green shirt on, but the red shirt kid is missing his blue shirt.
Yeah, he's an agent provocateur.
The church is a bully, isn't it? That $293 billion gives it it's able to maximize leverage.
Yes. Well, it reminds me of the old story. You know what the 2-ton canary says, don't you? Here, kitty, kitty. And that's what happened to the church. It used to be a canary. It grew up. It became a 2-ton canary. And now it acts completely different around the counts.
And we only showed this for a brief moment on Tuesday, but
Get Carrie. I think there's some UFOs captured in that picture.
yeah, there is a little bit of a glare up there. It's like an S for Superman or something. It's like the bat signal went out for the wrong superhero.
It's S for aliens. They read things backward in outer space. You understand?
There you go. I'll just note that was pretty cool of whoever did that to be able to light up the water tower, which is a part of the conversation in this whole thing. And you could just tell from that council. I mean, there was 2 people, I think, who said no. The rest of them said yes. And every one of them expressed that none of them wanted to vote for it, but every one of them felt like they were under the threat of lawsuit and that the church had enough money that even if it was a 50-50 proposition, that they were going to lose.
Yes.
That's horrible.
It is horrible.
I did see the Salt Lake Tribune's article, though, that that while they won the battle, they may have lost the war.
Yes. A Pyrrhic victory, my friend.
Yeah.
Debbie Donovan says the Green Lantern, LOL, prompting me to ask if anybody in the live chat actually knows the Green Lantern thing that he says when he's recharging his ring in the lantern. I took time to memorize this in 1973, and I bring it up every now and again so I don't entirely forget. He says, he puts his ring in the lantern, says, "In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light." There, you asked for it, Debbie.
There it is. Somebody in the chat saying, by the way, I'll just ask, somebody's saying that the church changed the name. Yeah, I'm aware that they changed the McKinney Temple to the Fairview Temple.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's what you're speaking to, or if you're making the claim that somewhere out there it has been changed back. That would be a really shitty move on the part of the LDS Church. So
No, I think that's probably just the news about changing it. They're not taking it back at this point. They got what they wanted. Everything was kabuki theater. I'm happy to say once again that I saw this coming and predicted it months ago that it would play out in exactly this way, to this exact result. And yet by the time it happened, or by the time I thought about asking somebody to make a bet, the writing was on the wall so much that even Rebecca wouldn't bet me $50 and a cheesecake on the issue because she agreed with me.
I think you still owe her a cheesecake from the Thursday before.
That is so not true. No, there is no cheesecake owed to anybody, especially someone named Rebecca Biblioteca. No cheesecake.
My favorite moment from, I think it was Thursday. I think it was from the Planning and Zoning Committee. My favorite moment from Thursday was this one where I got to see your nice legs.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I've been meaning to hit the gym more, but I'm very busy podcasting. What can I say? Those
are beautiful calves, RFM.
Thank you. Those are actually my forearms.
They are about the size of your
And I have both of my forearms in a rather large sleeve. That's what that is.
Look at you.
Yeah, so what this is, did you explain what this was while I was over here playing with the live chat?
No, I did not. You go ahead.
Okay. What this is a close-up which somebody made, some clever person out there, when we had our pictures overlaid on the screen where the city council meeting was happening. And people would walk up to the stand or to the lectern, actually, and to speak. There was some lady who walked up there, but our pictures were arranged such that my picture was right over that person's, the rest of their body. So it was funny. Somebody commented on it. Somebody else made a picture, and here it is, and the rest is history.
Yeah. So half you, half the person at the lectern equals one hot radio-free Mormon.
This is me trying out for the leading role in Sweet Charity.
Nice. Nice. And what's going on in this thing? This is part
That's Colby.
This is part of the chat around.
Wait, hang on. Wait. Oh, that's Colby.
This is the part of the chat around Dives Lazarus, aka Burke Sorensen.
That was last Friday night. It was only a week ago tonight. Oh my gosh. What a week. Oh my word. It was a week ago on a night just like tonight that we were talking about Dives, right? And what had happened was that I had said something on the podcast that was specifically directed to Colby. It was an inside joke. And he got it. And he found it so humorous that he couldn't stop smiling. He didn't actually laugh out loud. He came very close to it for a prolonged period of time. And so what I did was I captured that with my incredible editing skills, so much so that it's actually sideways on the TikTok. And I put it up there and I said, when the inside joke lands. And so I had, of course, sent it to Colby because when I'm mocking him in front of millions of people, I want to make sure he knows, right? It'd be like pointless if he didn't know I was mocking him.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So anyway, so he goes on there and in a classy way says, "You caught me." And then somebody else is laughing and says, "Bro." And then someone else says, "The whole idea of dissecting a competitive podcast host's bad behavior on air feels creepy and also in bad taste," using a tongue instead of the word taste. To which I responded, "You are right. Bad behavior should be allowed to continue without comment."
It is a weird thing, right? We're in this space where we shine a light on the unhealthy behaviors of the LDS Church and its leaders. And we've shined a light on apologists doing things like the Richard Nygren or the Bonnie Cordon and that whole homicide issue with little Derek.
Oh.
And then when somebody in our community, by the way, if we don't shine a light on somebody in our community on the post-Mormon side, what happens? They would accuse us, which they have before when we don't go out of our way to say something about the people who were vandalizing the chapels a few years ago.
Another one got vandalized.
Yeah, but because we don't do an entire episode on that, we get criticized for protecting our own, essentially. Well, guess what? We're not protecting our own. This is a perfect example that it doesn't matter who it is. If you misbehave in an egregious way, we're going to shine a light on it. It doesn't matter whether you're a post-Mormon or whether you're a Latter-day Saint or an apologist or a leader of the church. So I thought it was great. You're right. But bad behavior should be allowed to continue without comment. That's just nonsense. What Dives did, and by the way, I'll just put up here on the screen. Let me take this down and put that up. I went over to his channel, and by the way, there was a little bit of a soundbite from him in the newscast on Tuesday because I was going on YouTube. I wanted to take a peek. We said something.
That was Dives.
It was.
Okay, everybody, if you were watching, this is the answer to the mystery. This is why you have to tune in on Friday night to get the inside scoop. I didn't even know this. I suspected it, but all of a sudden, we're just watching the city council meeting, which is, pretty boring.
The audio's playing from my computer. I'm the one who's putting the audio from the city council onto the screen and to the audience. And while it's playing, and you're right, it's mostly boring. You guys said something. And
all of a sudden, there's this very loud, it's like somebody just cranked up the radio to 11 really fast. And all of a sudden, it was like, you turn on your car and the radio's on, bang, it's like that.
Yeah.
And it's briefly somebody talking. But Bill jumped on it so fast after recovering from his near heart attack. He cut it off very quickly. It wasn't absolutely sure, but I thought it sounded like Dives. And I think there was at least one person in the live chat who said it. They thought it was Dives too.
And they referenced Kobe as Cobley again, which was hilarious. But the reason it played was because I went on YouTube. You guys had said something that referenced that episode. And I wanted to just see if he had put something out because I knew we were going to have, I think we were at the deliberation or whatever. And so we had all this free time to sort of fill. And I just wanted to see if he had done something. I just want to note last Friday night, 1 week ago, today, last Friday, we did an episode where Kulch came on, Steve Pinecker came on, Kobe Reddish came on, and the two of us, and we showed that Burke had done something really in bad, horrible taste and on the side of almost certainly illegal. And I thought at some point he's got to say something. And a week has gone by and he is not saying a word. That guy does not want this to be talked about anymore. But until he addresses it, no one knows for sure that he's going to admit that he won't do things like that anymore. You got to own that behavior. Anyway, I'm just surprised he hasn't put something out, but I'm also not surprised.
Okay. You're ambivalent then.
Yeah, I do peak. I expect sooner or later he's got to say something. It'll be
Not
weird
only
if he
ambivalent,
makes fun
you're
of us again.
ambivalent.
It'll be weird if he makes fun of us or others again and goes that whole time and never addresses this.
Yes. Well, there you go. But what a week it's been, as I say. So we've got some people lined up.
We
Bill?
do. Yeah, we've got 2 people down below. We've got 2 phone calls in the queue, and the phone calls were there first. So I'm going to take them. So this is going to be, I think this is going to be, man, I don't have a name here, but what's the name, caller?
DG.
DG. All right, DG.
DG.
Greetings from West Texas.
Greetings from Southern Utah and the great state of Washington.
Out in the West Texas town of El Paso.
Not quite that far. That's far West Texas. I'm in West Texas. Far West
You can't
Texas.
get much further west than El
And
Paso.
the Big Bend. No, then you're in New Mexico. And then you're in the colonies, and they're still practicing polygamy down there. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you so much for what both of you are doing. Long-time viewer, first-time caller. Is that what we say? I guess we don't say that on the podcast. That
Long
was an
time,
old,
first
radio
time. Yeah, long time, first time on the old radio call-in shows.
Yeah, and I'm actually in radio broadcasting. That's my career.
Mhm.
And I wanted to say I've been watching y'all for quite some time, and the introductory graphics that you have, especially for RFM Mormonism Live, the dancing mic booms.
Yeah,
I always laugh at that because the mics they're not connected. There's no cord going into the top of the microphones. I've always laughed at that, but if you're not in radio, you wouldn't know that.
You'd be surprised the number of times I sit down in order to do a show, and I realize that I haven't connected my cord to the microphone either.
And your listenership goes up exponentially, I'm sure, as a result.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What I wanted to talk about, RFM, I really appreciate your watching conference so that I don't have to. I've been a lifelong member. My records are still in, but I've been out for quite some time. And in fact, I worked in the temple here for 18 years, so ask me anything. But I really appreciate, especially this last round this spring where you did the telethon. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. In fact, I had just a couple of ideas you might want to consider, because I grew up watching Jerry Lewis and those Labor Day telethons, in my youth. And you're actually dressed for the telethon right now. Your tuxedo and your getup is actually what Jerry Lewis always wore. And he always had his tie undone, the top button undone, because after the first 12 hours, he's just sweating buckets and, smoking cigarettes as fast as he can and drinking coffee or whatever to keep going. But he always wore this, what would you call it? Not a shawl, but he had this thing that he was always wiping the sweat off of his brow.
Oh, really?
And so your getup tonight is actually what you need to wear when you do the post-conference telethon. I think that would really capture the look. And then you need to have Bill Real saying, "Hey-o," and then you go to the tote board, and the tote board is counting the number of members that are out.
Oh, hey, that's great. That's great. Then Doc Severinsen can strike up the band.
Exactly. See, you're catching it. I just thought the original idea was brilliant, but I thought, if he just added this, it would be so much. Anyway, just some ideas to toss around.
Thank you. It's a great idea. DG. By the way, are you familiar with KBGO 1580?
Yep. In fact, I used to in the 90s, mid 90s, I used to do distant AM listening. And I would try to listen to all of the AM signals that would come in here to West Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And I would actually listen to conference. They used to rebroadcast conference late at night on KSL, and we could hear it out of Salt Lake City, this far south. So yeah, I've been in radio for over 30 years, but y'all are doing it right. You've got it nailed. And hello to everybody in the live chat and Rebecca Biblioteca. We watch your stuff too. And I was also thinking, I went to early morning seminary here in West Texas, and that was a whole different concept outside of the Mormondom. But this is late night seminary, and I like your seminary better. I'm learning so much more than what I learned in early morning seminary 40, 50 years ago. So keep it up. Y'all are doing fantastic.
And the good news is you don't have to have a certificate of graduation from us to get into BYU.
And it's a hell of a lot less trauma too. It's a little more fun learning about it on this side.
Yes, absolutely. And I wish there was some way y'all could come visit this corner of the world, but I know that y'all are caught up in, you were mentioning places, New York, Colorado, California. I don't know that there's enough of a Exmo group here that we could gather, but I would love to have y'all here. There's just not a whole lot of Exmo resources in this corner of the field, white ready to harvest. So,
yeah, are you up on the Llano Estacada?
Yes.
So you're pretty close to the sky. You can reach up and touch the stars.
I'm actually standing outside. The stars are quite bright here, deep in the heart of Texas, but I'm not near the heart. I mean,
don't say that. You say that, the LDS Church will come put a temple in the middle of your town, and they'll light that motherfucker up.
We've already got one. There's already one here. I'm in Lubbock. So I worked in the Lubbock Temple for 18 years, and I can tell you all about how brightly lit that thing was in our town.
We had pictures of it on the show on Monday, but people kept saying that it wasn't the right temple, but it was. So in other words, I know how bright it is because we just had pictures of it up this week.
Yeah, they keep those things brightly lit, and the temple here was built long before the development around it rose. And I don't know about the tax situation in Fairview, but here, because of the temple, all of the houses around it in the neighborhood that surrounds the temple here, they're having to pay extra high property taxes because of that structure in their midst.
That makes sense. They get you coming and going, don't they? They
Absolutely.
get your 10% coming in, they get your property taxes going out. So
they don't even give you a set off.
I don't think the residents that live near the temple here are probably not too appreciative of not only the lighting, but I'm sure the higher tax rates that they're having to pay because that's in their neighborhood is not appreciated either. But anyway, I love what y'all are doing. I appreciate it. And I tell you, we don't have many resources here. They're all online. So that's why we're all following you guys and appreciate the time and effort work that y'all put in. And yeah, y'all are content creators like I've never seen before. How you're able to do this every day of the weeks on end is just amazing to me. And you're my heroes.
Well, thank you, DJ. I give all the credit to Jesus.
Yeah, thank you, DJ. Have a great day.
Not Mormon friend. Jesus, I hope.
There's only one.
I'll take care. Thank you so much.
Okay, take it easy.
Thank you. And he loves me so much.
Yeah. All right. Our next
he loves me more than anybody else in the world.
Jesus does?
Yeah. That's how I know he's the true Jesus.
Yeah. One and only. Yahshua Bar Yosef. Yeah.
Yahshua Bar None.
There you go. All right. So the next caller here is Bobby, I believe. Bobby, is that the name? Hello? Oh, let me try this again. Let's try it again. Are you there, Bobby?
Hi.
How are you?
Yep. I just heard the beat.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, Bobby.
RFM. Wow. What? This is a what is it? First time, long time caller. I think I nailed it.
Nice.
So
glad you're
really
here.
good to really good to talk to you guys. So
it's great to hear you.
Things that I wanted to thank you. So first off, the whole thing with divas, dives, whatever. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather here, so
no worries.
But, I watched the episode last week, and I'm sure you thought that like maybe this is all part of his plan. Maybe he wants all of this. Like maybe he wants the attention. Maybe he's going to use it to kind of catapult himself up into something else. But
well, then he must be feeling really good by now.
All this stuff. I mean, it's weird, right? I mean, it's really like I don't know if I'm right with any of this, but it's like he's trying to get attention for bad behavior that like is so poorly concealed. Mm-hmm. I just don't understand what his end game is with this. And it feels almost like it's intentional. Like maybe he wants to, he wanted his name to get out so he can get excommunicated, and that would give him some street cred. I don't know. but it's just it's just such an interesting, like, the way everything's rolling out is so weird.
You agree?
And,
I mean, you're saying it's weird.
the-
You agree it's missing something. His motivations, or who he is, or what's going on in his head. It's missing
Without a
something
doubt.
that should be there that's not.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's something that just seems off. That seems, and so, I mean, I actually wasn't even planning on talking about that, but when you and RFM were talking about this, I had to comment because it's kind of been on my mind all week for some reason.
Yeah,
But,
I need to apologize.
it's not
You'll
like I
get
was in the
you'll get a chance to
email.
finish your thought, but I have to apologize to our audience. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt Friday night, and because I can only find two options available. One is that there's something really unhealthy about him. He doesn't understand boundaries, and he's willing to go to lengths that an ethical person would not go to in order to get the publicity that he seems to be begging for. And I said, well, the other option is that there's something, maybe it's autism, where he isn't picking up on social cues. And I had about a dozen people reach out to me from Friday night. It was like Friday night after the show, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and I think I got one more on Tuesday from people who have autism who said that, I understand, Bill, like, no negative towards you for saying that, but that's not autism. And so I just want to apologize because I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to figure out what it is that's making him do what he's doing and approach his work the way he approaches it. And what I seem to think I
Very
see
odd.
is really odd, unhealthy behavior.
Sorry about the laughing. I was thinking, no,
sure.
ma'am, that's not autism.
Yeah.
Well, I think the way that you handled it was very even-handed. I mean, you were direct with the things that you had, evidence and backing to be direct about. But I feel like, even you had a lot of justification to be a lot more upset, visually than what you appear to be. And so I think you handled it well. I mean, you handled it as well as you could. I don't know. There's really no rule book on this. But,
yeah, I've given him multiple chances, by the way, to reach out and to address it and be accountable. And until then, I'll keep working behind the scenes with folks to try to pin it down exactly. But I think it could easily be resolved with just some accountability.
Yeah, Bill may look cool and calm on the exterior, but inside he's a raging volcano of emotions.
And Mark got a little bit of that. I told you guys, I was like, hey, listen, when Mark comes in, be soft with Mark. Let's have a real long conversation.
That's what he does. And Mark just sticks his toe in there, and Bill is bringing out the hatchet and going after it. Bam, bam, bam.
Because 2 words into his answer, I knew he wasn't going to answer the question.
And even then I said, okay, you got to give him a chance. If this were an objection, the judge would say, no, it's overruled right now, but let's let him answer the question first. Yeah. So he did. And of course, it wasn't an answer. So then his objection was sustained.
Anyway, I hope Dives can figure out how to behave and be appropriate and stay on the right side of ethical boundaries going forward.
Without a doubt. I hope so too. I really do. But the actual thing I wanted to call about is, so I'm at PIMO, and I have been for probably close to 3 years now, maybe 2 years, something like that. And before that, I was very nuanced in my belief. And then I started watching the Mormon stories, the Mormon discussion series, and I was very well, I was a good study when it came to the correlated church history. And I knew it as well as you could have. I went on a church history mission. And so it was really eye-opening, and didn't take long after that for things to kind of, puzzle pieces to be put together. Anyway, I still attend, and and I'm realizing that it is a very weird place to be in, because ex-Mormons who I identify more with, it seems like most of the time, they don't really seem to understand like why you're still going, like it's just like, well, why don't you just stop? Yeah, that it's not true. Why don't you just stop? And it seems like the believers see you as too dangerous, and you kind of get that feel of things too, even though it's said you'd never be told that directly in church, but it's I think that there is just and maybe you can comment on this offline or something, or while I'm off, but I'm just really curious to hear what, there should be some kind of survival guide or some kind of resource for PIMOs, because it's not an easy place to be. People stay for a lot of different reasons, and none of them have to do with belief. They don't have to do with belief. And
well,
so,
Bobby,
anyways,
let me tell you what my experience is.
Yeah.
The tough thing about
please.
staying in the middle of the road is you get hit by traffic going both ways.
Well said. Yeah.
I had a friend, Bobby, who went to church after no longer believing for a few months, and he would put earbuds in his ears and listen to other interesting things, other podcasts or whatever else, so that he would sit through sacrament meeting and just be listening to something else instead of the drivel that's coming from the stand. So maybe
Sure.
that's an option for those folks, but it's a tough road. And you're right. There are lots of valid reasons for why people would be physically in and mentally out.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for acknowledging that. I mean, I think that it's a hard place to be, because I think that, if a few different things were different, and people have aging parents, who are, very active, and I'm not saying that the ones who have chosen to leave under those circumstances have done anything less than commendable and a very difficult thing. My hat's off to them, but it just feels like I think what you said, RFM, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, being in the middle of the road, you're right. It's traffic from both ways. So,
but it's up to you what you do, and that's the main thing, Bobby. That's the main thing I want to leave with you, is that your path is your path to walk the way you want to walk it. And if you want to go to church, regardless of how it is you feel inside or believe inside, that's totally up to you. And there's nobody who should be saying that's bad or that's good. I think that's your choice.
100%.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it, because I mean, I would love to, at some point, to maybe not go anymore, but there's just so many strings. It's like, I mean, this is a reference that I think RFM will appreciate too, is Gulliver's Travels. At the beginning of the book, he's laying on the beach, and he's got all these little strings. He wakes up out of nowhere, and he has all these strings that are attached to the beach holding him down. And I kind of feel like Mormonism, in a lot of ways, is like waking up on in Gulliver's Travels, where you didn't ask for all these strings that were tied to you. They're just there, and now it's one of these situations like, well, I need to figure out what to do with them, or I just mess the whole thing up by standing up and screwing up the beach. I don't know, but
I think you make a great point. Mormonism, especially if you're born in the covenant, it entangles itself with your relationships. If you're in a highly Mormon area, say Utah, it entangles itself with your employment over the course of your life. It entangles itself in the most important relationships you have outside of you. And it entangles itself in the way that you experience the world internally, and unraveling all of that, untying all of those strings and figuring out how to get away from those little guys that tied you up. That could be a lifetime of processing.
Sure. No, that's a really good point. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bobby.
I really appreciate you both for everything. You are, you both are, great examples, and I just, examples of what, that's something that I'll say for another, maybe Mormonism After Dark. But I really do appreciate you both, and appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah. Have a great night, my friend.
Thank you, Bobby.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You put up a comment from Debbie earlier, and I was going to say something
Started
earlier.
it, didn't you? Something
What's that?
happened to it. It changed color.
Oh, I started. Yes. So
Yeah.
I'll go back up here if I can.
Because it was really well put, wasn't it?
I was thinking this earlier. I wanted to say my favorite episodes, the only episodes of Dives I enjoy is when he's actually playing other people talking. He's done several episodes where he cuts you and me up, and I think they're moderately funny. But it's when he sort of cuts out other content. But Debbie said it best. I figured it out. Dives used all others' Exmo content and piggybacks on it. That's very true. In fact, I criticized his content for being unoriginal when he started, because it's a play on everybody else's content, everybody's content. So yeah, very true. So there's that. And there have been 2 super chats. Thank you, Culch, for the $4.99, and thank you, Tim, for the $5. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Tim. How are things in Bakersfield? Hot, I bet.
There you go. We do have people down below, so I'm going to bring on Snow Chess. You'll just need to unmute yourself there, Snow Chess.
No chess. Wasn't that a
Mormonism
skit
After
song
Dark.
back in the 70s?
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing great.
Excellent.
So, yeah, I called in some time ago. I was on a bicycle, if you remember, but I finished my ride around Lake Sammamish early today.
You were weaving in and out of traffic like a madman.
No, actually, I was on just the bike trail. Wasn't on the main thing. But anyway, I wanted to. There's a few things I've been thinking about that I wanted to mention about Mormon. Doing better Mormon apologetics, but I have to make a comment there about autism. There was some discussion a little earlier about autism and humor, and I don't claim to be an expert on autism, but my son is on the spectrum, and he's high functioning. He's graduating from university very soon with his undergraduate in math. So we're very, very proud of him. But he's had lots of social issues and challenges there. And one thing I can say, and again, I'm not saying this is the same. This represents all autism. This is a sample of one. In this case, he loves humor that makes people uncomfortable. So Andy Kaufman. Nathan Fielder. I don't know if you've familiar.
I know
with
Andy
Nathan
Kaufman.
Fielder.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, Nathan Fielder. He's a modern. He's got shows on now. He's got one on HBO where but it's all about making people unsettled, and it's the audience is the butt of the joke, really. And so my son will even go and do Mike night at university or a stand up. And he'll go and do things like spend 20 minutes reciting names of fish. That's all he's doing. There's no joke. It's like, and the idea is just kind of see, does the audience get uncomfortable? What do they start doing?
Yes,
How do
because
they
they're
respond?
uncomfortable because this guy's supposed to be funny and he's really, really not funny. And he seems to be serious, but it can't be serious. He must be joking, but he keeps going and going. So maybe he is serious.
Exactly. And my son knows, he understands this. He understands that the audience doesn't, somehow he finds that interesting. He finds that amusing. So I'm not saying this is how autistic people are. I can't, that would be too much of a stretch, but just saying there are some different types of humor out there.
I also imagine, so I have 2 good friends, husband and wife. They've got a kid, and he's on the spectrum, and he will blurt out what is the obvious thing that everyone in the room's thinking, or the connection we all make, but we all understand like the boundary is in society that we don't say the thing, right?
Yeah.
And he says it, and so people, you're like, oh, I guess it got said, but as they've worked with him, he's like 18 years old at this point, as they've worked with him to help him understand where those lines are, he does get that there are these lines, and he may not quite pick up on them. He may blur them at times, but he does learn. And in the instance we're talking about, this person seems to not learn. They've been informed over and over again that they're crossing the line, and they don't care. They just keep crossing it.
Yeah, but okay, again, I can tell my son a million times that certain types of questions are inappropriate, and he'll always ask them. I'll say, you don't ask people about how they felt, or he will ask very personal questions about your sex life and things like this, and they're just inappropriate.
Yeah.
And I cannot even kind of comprehend how he could be so smart to do math I can't even begin to do, but he can't understand that he can't ask questions like this. So I don't know. I'm just again,
I'm laughing because I've been known to find it humorous to make people uncomfortable as well.
So
you're just getting mad as hell at me. That makes my day.
So that's my autism thing I had to mention about. But okay, Mormon apologetics. I I've been very fascinated with the Fairview Temple. I watched your live stream, and
isn't Rebecca amazing?
Yes, and I'm really fascinated by what's been going on there. And I think, I don't know, at least two of the sessions I've watched the live stream of, which is, I tell my wife this, and she says, "What the hell are you doing? Like, why would you be watching like boring planning zone commission meetings?
Anything, watching grass grow."
Exactly. So, but I gotta say, I think there are better arguments the Mormon Church could be using than what they're using, and I outright, I think it's very sad the way they're bullying the town. I don't like it. But I think there's better arguments they could be using. And I just wanted, maybe I shouldn't be giving advice, but
well, go ahead, give us one. Give us the best argument that the church should be making on behalf of the temple being big and bright.
So here it is. So the number one, well, at least not one of the arguments I keep hearing people who are criticizing the church say is that you don't need to have a big steeple. You don't need this big monstrosity, because you have other temples where you don't have that. And some of your leaders have even publicly said that it's not the size that matters, right? And it's the ceremonies and the rituals and all of this stuff. So, but I think a counter to that would be an example of mosques and synagogues. And what do I mean? There are religions, and those are examples of them, of religions where in different societies they're not very welcome. And those faiths have the Jewish faiths and the Islamic faiths have been willing to make very big compromises with in certain countries and communities with how they would like their worship houses to be, so that they can exist, right? And so there are places where the synagogues, you can't even tell, or the mosque, where there's no minaret, there's nothing distinctive about it at all that you could tell from the outside. But does that mean that they're happy with it? Does that mean that Muslim community that had to build their mosque in a way that you cannot even tell? There's zero, attributes externally visible about the nature of what it is. That doesn't mean that they feel good about it, or that they feel and if they have their choice and they are allowed to have more design freedom and so forth, then they would like to be open about, with things that make them proud of their faith or other things. And so I think I think that's a legitimate legitimate argument, that just because you might have religious buildings in one area that are very that blend in and are not a very non-ostentatious, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't want to build one somewhere else if you can.
And Snow Chest, I think it's a very interesting idea. Let me give you another idea that came to me, and you reminded me of it when you were saying something about openness. Okay. Which is so interesting about this whole steeple thing. And you're right. That's exactly the counter argument that's usually given, right? Is that they have temples without steeples or much shorter steeples. And why can't this one be the same? Now, the thing that is ironic, I believe, about this entire exercise is that what the church really believes, they're ashamed to say, which is that they believe that God told Russell Nelson to build this building with this dimensions and this height spire and this brightness of light upon it in this place.
Yeah.
That's what they believe. They're embarrassed to say it. The irony, which puts them on the horns of the dilemma of the fake temple spire height doctrine, right? So they have to retreat to that. The irony is that if they would just say what it is that they actually believe and that God commanded this temple spire to be as high as they want it to be, that would be a much better case for them.
Well, they could
going on
just
our lupa.
This is likely why they need a proclamation of temples.
This is why they need to hire me. Fire everybody else. All you need is me. Everybody else is screwing things up for you.
Right. Well, if they go and just like with gay rights in the 90s, where they published a proclamation for the family, they can do one on temples, and they can say that they now have revelation that God would like large, ostentatious buildings, and they can even phrase it somewhere where it's possible, because we will, of course, want to make our meeting houses available to our believers everywhere. But they could somehow hedge it a little bit. But then that would give them the argument in places like Fairview that yes, they do have revelation from God that they should have 600-foot steeples. And so anyway,
and
I
with
agree you.
One of the guys actually who spoke drew the analogy about the Kirtland Temple and saying that according to blah, 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 the specifics of the Kirtland Temple were given to Joseph Smith by revelation.
Yeah.
He's hinting at what it is that he's afraid to say, which is the same thing goes to this temple. And it's not Joseph Smith, it's Russell Nelson. Now build it this high, damn it, or suffer the consequences.
Yeah. So that was my thought about the temples. And I had one other final thought about, I don't know, it's kind of apologetics, but there's a common question that ex-Mormons have. It's, do the leaders of the church believe?
Yes, they all do. 100%.
Well, I think they do. And
you're right, Snow Chest. You're absolutely right on that one.
No, they know it's a fraud. They know it's a fraud in the same way that David Miscavige knows Scientology is a fraud.
So here's my evidence. I was just utterly fascinated listening to all the different interviews. I've listened to different shows and the Mormon stories, and I can't remember if you guys had him on too, Matthew Harris, with his Second Class Saints.
No, he's been dodging me. I think he ghosted me or something.
Well, I've listened to, I know he's been on multiple shows.
I've been trying to get him on the show, but he has been very busy at another competing podcast.
So one thing that really struck me from that is how seriously the leaders of the church took all of this priesthood ordination and this to the extent of really discussing the theological implications, and if they didn't believe, they wouldn't care about those kinds of issues. They wouldn't have. So it seemed to me they have to believe, they have to care about this stuff, or the kinds of discussions that Matthew was pointing out and saying he's getting from their journals and things like this. That is a degree of concern and interest in that topic where I think it goes. I just can't even imagine.
Okay, we got your point, Snow Chest. Good point. What do you think of that, Bill?
All right. So my response is, I think if you go back far enough in time, the conversations look like they contain believers. I don't see that in the modern moment. I would say from, I don't know when, but let's at least say the last 2 decades, it seems clear to me that everything is so carefully crafted and obfuscated that it would take a strategic master plan to carry these things out. Take a gospel topic essay, what they say, what they don't say, taking Brigham Young's prophecy that priesthood will come back to people of color at some point, and then dropping off the fact that it's going to happen after the millennium. There's so much fudging and manipulating and carefully crafting that it takes a room full of smart people with the intentional motivation to do that.
I agree with you, but my argument is that they're doing that not because they know it's not true. They're doing it because they know it is true.
Elder Oaks is on the record saying that everything can be sacrificed to uphold like three things: Jesus is the Christ, the leaders of the church, and priesthood authority. Yeah. And what it really means is the leaders of the church.
Yeah.
So
and in other words, every doctrine and teaching and belief can be abandoned if necessary in order to maintain obedience of the membership as tithe payers to the leaders.
Because that is the only way to exaltation, and the leaders believe that so much that they're willing to lie to the members in order to get rid of the information that would lead them away from exaltation. That's how much they love us.
What you're doing, Bill, 1 second. So I'll let you I want to push back on RFM, which is what you're doing, RFM, is you're doing the apologetic game. I think, and the outward evidence is that they're bullshitting. And you're going, they're bullshitting because they're believers.
Yes, that's what
I'm saying. It seems more reasonable that they're bullshitting because they're lying bullshitters.
Well, I'll tell you, I can't see into their heart any better than the next man, but I will say that it was a huge stride forward in my understanding of church history and human psychology when I recognized the fact that many times people will lie about their religion because they believe it's true and they know what the truth is, and they don't want the person they're talking to know the truth that would lead them out of the church or keep them from joining in the first place. Therefore, there's a conscious decision to lie or bullshit, as you put it, in order to get someone to join the church because you do believe it's true so much.
That's another. I know, Snow Chest, you've got a whole thing to say.
This is why Emma lied in her last testament, right?
You're making allowances. In other words, you're going, no, these guys really think they're apostles of the Lord Jesus Christ, and they have these standards of righteousness and goodness and honesty, but they thwart all of that to be complete lying, deceiving assholes every day.
Yes. Now you've got it. That is exactly what I'm saying.
Take all that out. They're just lying, deceiving assholes. There's less allowances and conjecture required.
To paraphrase Dan Vogel, they're pious, lying, deceiving assholes.
Yeah, but now one more step, and you're D. Michael Quinn, who goes, yeah, they're lying, deceiving assholes, but they still have the keys, and I want to get back in the church. And you're making allowances when what we all see are lying, deceiving assholes.
So you take McConkie. I firmly think he believed, but what people believe, I think the definition of their belief is different than what the members would say. That McConkie clearly knew. We have evidence that he knew that some of the history was that the official history was bunk. We know that because there was other conversations where he was admitting it and so on, right? We have letters and things like this. But
Eugene England letters, by the way, not to be confused with Wade England.
Yeah, no, don't confuse.
Came right around on that one, didn't we?
On the other hand, he, I just again, I go back to the Matthew Harris book. I mean, the things that he did in the deliberate, his arguments and even the effort he put to when they finally did make the decision that he wanted to like build theological constructs and stuff for how this would all work, and he even wrote the verbiage for their announcement. And I mean, he has to on some level believe that sincerely that the church is a good thing, and that
you're talking about D. Michael Quinn now, right?
Bruce R. McConkie.
I'm talking about McConkie. Bruce.
Oh yeah,
McConkie.
he thought it was a very, very good hammer, and everything else in the world was a nail.
But I don't know. I guess I don't know how you can not hear what Matthew is writing about in the whole all the deliberations that happened over the priesthood in the 70s and black ordination and
Matthew Harris.
It could also be an intentional attempt to keep everything explainable. Like, if you're going to keep kicking the can down the street from generation to generation, there has to be some degree of keeping things moderately coherent. And so I'll just say this, and I'll let you make your last point, because we could hammer this out all night.
And we do have to move on, because
I've made my points.
That's all right, but let me just say, Snow Chest, that's one of those issues that I think is right at the line, and I think people on both sides can make a solid argument, whether it's an intentional deception or whether it's a pious fraud. So thank you.
Lying, deceiving asshole, you mean?
Yes. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I'm good.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great
much.
night.
Thanks, No Chest. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
I want to say something really quick too.
Now we got 3 people down below.
We do. I turned off the phone call lines, so this will be
it. Mirrors on his ceiling.
Yeah, Kobe.
You said the name.
Cobley.
You said the name, Bill.
Hey, that's all right. So
you can see him right there.
I just want to note something from the Fairview Town Council and the Planning and Zoning Committee. So many people got up on the believing side and mentioned that non-members will be able to go on the grounds. And
yes.
I just want to know, to any believers out there, that is so patronizing. It is so condescending, and you don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
What you're doing is saying, no, you couldn't go inside. Like, you're not good enough for that. But I mean, if you wanted, you could walk the grounds, and nobody feels like they're being
until you're moved away.
No one's being told a good thing by you telling them that they can come onto the grounds.
Yeah.
You're being condescending and patronizing, and no Mormon should ever do that again.
Stroll around the grounds until you feel at home.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to go to the next one here. It's Andrew.
Andrew.
20 already. We've got about 11 minutes left.
Andrew, how long have you been waiting there? You were clean shaven when you started, weren't you?
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I'm getting older than RFM. How is that happening?
It's amazing. Yeah. I'm actually going backward in time.
Whoa, Benjamin Button.
It's quite a trip.
What's on your mind, my friend?
This isn't what I was gonna call about, but my son also, to go on the autism train. My son has autism. He's 10 though. And this week it was rough, really, really rough. I had to pick him up twice from school because he had started hitting people at school. So yeah, there's some issues. That being said, I have no idea. I'm not here to diagnose anybody, especially with whatever was going on.
Yeah.
But this is kind of off topic, but I was just gonna tell you all, I've been working on a novel that is supposed to be super, super funny and has to do with Mormonism, but really, really like spoofing Mormonism. So I was curious about your thoughts of some of the ideas I had. The idea is that Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother decide that they hate the Latter-day Saint Church and they're going to create a Space Day Saint Church. We're going to do Space Day Saints, because they do like they live on.
I thought they were going to hate each other and get a divorce.
That's. I was just going to suggest that. I
said it first, though, so you got to credit me.
Yeah, no, yeah.
You can't prove it. You can't prove it, Andrew. He said it first in front of thousands of people.
Copyrighted,
millions
published. Yeah.
You write the book, we're suing you.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. You take that idea. It's just an idea. You go ahead and run with it if you want.
That eternal marriage, because I'm divorced and I'm pretty amicable with my ex, but this idea that gods can't get a divorce, and maybe it's because they hate each other, that everything is messed up. Like,
take it from me, they get divorced all the time. Family law attorneys do a lot of business in the celestial kingdom.
Does Elohim have to write the first presidency? Does he have to get their approval to cancel his sealing to Heavenly Mother?
Yeah, I don't know. Something that also is part of the book is we learned that so in the temple there's the true order of prayer, right? We learned that the apostles and the prophet take part in a special ritual called the true order of ass kissing, where they line up in a line and will say, as they like kiss each other's ass, they'll go, "Oh God, place thine ass on my mouth. Oh God, place thine ass on my mouth."
Looks like they're having a game of buck.
Yeah. So
if anybody gets that, you get a gold star.
Say that again.
They're having a game of buck. Buck number one, come in.
Something.
Something's you have to explain that to me. I don't know. By the way,
let's get the people in the live chat a chance on that one first. All right, you're playing buck. I mean, no, you're saying the apostles are playing buck while they're kissing each other's arse.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like, you know, from junior to seniority with the prophet, and then the prophet is supposed to be like symbolically kissing God's ass because God isn't, like, Heavenly Father isn't personally present, so he just has to do it kind of like by proxy. But he doesn't have to kiss anybody else's real ass, just Heavenly Father's make-believe ass.
Yes. By the way, Vocalese gets Bill Cosby RFM.
There you go.
Absolutely. Buck number one. That's from the very famous comedy sketch called about Fat Albert.
Hey, I'm Fat Albert.
He's the one who won the buck game for them.
Okay.
I just want to note, if you step outside of Mormonism and look at it from the 20,000 foot view, it really is a weekly practice of ass kissing. In terms of who gets to move where and how people stay in the good graces of the leaders above them and be in charge of the people below them. It's one big ass kissing operation.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like your idea.
Yeah.
So many asses to kiss so little time.
Yeah. On my mission, I saw all that ass kissing. Anyway,
did you do any ass kissing yourself, Andrew? Andrew,
what's that?
Truth or dare? Truth or dare? Did you do any ass kissing yourself?
I didn't. I swear I didn't. I did not get any leadership positions. I didn't train anybody. I became a senior companion like way after other people became senior companions.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't a problem missionary, but I also just wasn't that. I just was really apathetic about the race to the top.
Yeah.
We learn ass kissing in the temple. I mean, Jehovah, Michael, take heretofore matter unorganized. Go to, and then it's, we will go down, Jehovah. We will go down. You know, and we will go down, Elohim. And there is just this like, oh, we'll do what you tell us to do. And that's how we stay in the good graces of God.
Yeah, there's that. And there's Eve having to ass kiss Adam as Adam ass kisses the Lord. You know?
That's true.
There's that.
That's the important thing, is that Mormonism tells us something that's very important for us, at least in the first half of life, which is where we fit in the pecking order.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's safety and security in that. But then you're supposed to get to the second half of life where you're supposed to start using your brain for something other than holding your ears apart.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's a big problem, and I'm glad I'm out of it, but I still have family that are part of it. So have to see them keep doing that. But
obedience is the first law of heaven. Give us one more, Andrew, and then we got to.
Okay.
Person.
Yeah. Just let me see.
So Heavenly Mother and Heavenly Father are getting a divorce. Yeah. And Heavenly Mother is smart and gets Radio Free Mormon to represent her.
Oh yeah. Oh, right. Yep. I will let her know about,
Okay.
I will send the information.
Because this is going to
Heavenly
be a
Father,
very long. This is going to be
Yeah.
a very long parenting plan. I'm guessing.
yeah. Heavenly Father has something called ADHD. So I have ADHD. So it makes me feel like I get to make fun of ADHD because I have it. So Heavenly Father has ADHD. He can't focus.
It's good. I like this. I kind of
So
think maybe he
like
does.
he's
I think
God.
you've
He's all
diagnosed the
powerful.
most powerful being
He
in the
just
universe, Andrew. He does. He has
so
ADHD. That would explain a lot. You
Coffee.
know that.
right like oops, sorry, like oh what just happened for the last 200 years? Oops.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Like, oh,
Did I
you just
leave
weren't
black,
paying
not king
attention,
the
were you?
priesthood?
And I think that God might be on
Yeah.
the spectrum as well, because every now and then, for no reason, he just hauls off and starts hitting people.
Yeah, right. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So that means my son is going to be a good God. Like
Like the
he's
Squire of
well on
Goth,
his way.
the Squire of Gothos. Do I have that wrong? The Squire of Gothos,
I don't know.
Star Trek episode. Okay,
Mhm.
it's something like
Yep,
that.
I'm
Anyway,
not certain.
it's a being who has godlike powers, who acts in a very petulant
Oh, is
kind
that
of way.
Q? Are you talking about Q or is that
No. The real Star
okay?
Trek, the
It is
original.
the Squire of Gothos. Is the 17th episode of the first season of Star Trek. It was written by Paul Schneider and directed by Don McDougall. The episode first aired on January 12th, 1967. In the episode, the childish but powerful ruler of the planet Gothos captures the crew of the Enterprise for his own amusement. The story provides Kirk with one obstacle after another as he and Trelane become adversaries in a series of potentially deadly games.
Trelane is the Squire. He's the one with the godlike powers.
I was just going to look up a picture of it.
Yes. Well, anyway,
I see. Yeah.
Squire of Gothos.
He's dressed like he wrote the Declaration of Independence in the 1700s.
Yes, it would seem to me an obvious cultural reference.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Andrew.
Yeah, I love you guys.
Book,
Thank you so much.
write the book. Send us a
Bye,
copy.
Andrew.
Have a great night. All right, Chris. How are you?
Good. How are you? Can you guys hear me okay?
Awesome.
Chris?
Hey, I'll be
How
quick.
you doing, man?
I'm all right.
Have you been hanging out with Diamond David Sneaks?
Cobley disappeared, by the way.
In the back of the grocery store? In the alleyway?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Chris, David and Sneaks. Go ahead.
I'll be quick. I just I heard about this story and I was just wondering if you guys had heard about it. It's this guy called Douglas Stringfellow he was a Mormon missionary, and then he went and served in World War II. And when he got back, he told all of these. He was on the radio. He was a radio DJ guy in Salt Lake, he lived up in Weber. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting story. I didn't know if you guys had heard. I probably should have just emailed you guys about it. But
are you looking this up, Bill?
Yeah,
I won't.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
1922 to 1966, personal life, military service, stolen valor.
Yeah, he starts telling all these stories about his service. He just had a really mediocre.
Paul H. Dunning it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
He was Paul H. Dunning it before Paul H. Dunn was cool.
Yeah, and so it gets really out of control, and they put him on This Is Your Life. There's tape of him. There's tape of him on This Is Your Life. And it's been a few weeks since I was meant to look into this a little bit more, but
this would be a fun episode of Mormonism Live at some point.
Yeah, I thought maybe you guys might be interested in it because
I had never heard of this fellow, Stringfellow.
Yeah, yeah, and he actually got some bad consequences in the end. Like how sometimes they get away with it, but he didn't really. It turned out bad for him in the end. But
how bad?
He died, but it was really bad for his family. I guess everybody
turned out bad for his family in the end.
Yeah, he died. I forget. Well, he was just humiliated, and he tried to recover, but couldn't. You know what I mean? But he has ties. He has ties with President McKay and with Ezra Taft Benson because he was in government during their service or whatever. But I thought it was like you say, it makes liars of us all. you know, it's just another example of that. But anyway, I thought you might find that interesting, but I'll let you go.
I never heard of it before.
Yeah.
Now, the amazing thing, first off, Chris, is that there are people out there who will do this kind of thing. We know of them. He's one of them. The other amazing thing is that there seems to be no lack of people who will believe them when they do this kind of thing.
Yeah, because it gets really unbelievable. It gets pretty crazy, but I heard about, there's a podcast on it. I heard that's where I first heard about it, but yeah, there's probably a lot of, and then there's I looked up online, you can see where it goes on the This Is Your Life, but I haven't actually watched that yet. But I looked it up as I was on waiting for you guys, but I haven't I couldn't focus on both things. But anyway,
it's just so dang interesting, actually.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting story, but and I just wanted to thank you guys too. I guess I've never met you, but I've been listening for a long time. Long time, first time, long time, and all that. But anyway,
this is going to become what people say when they call in. First time, long time. It'll be something that only people who call into this show will say, because I don't think it's ever been said anywhere else. First time, long time.
First time, long time.
Let's make it so. By the way, I came up with a little byline for the show tonight, which I didn't say at the top, but which I want to say now, okay? Just so we can get in the habit. See what you think of this, Bill. I'm springing it on Bill. Just when you thought it was safe to go back on the internet, it's Mormonism After Dark.
Dun, dun, dun.
What do you think?
I like it.
Yeah.
That's your every week cold open.
That's it.
There it is. All right. Starting next week.
Chris, thank you so much for calling.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks a lot.
You're amazing.
You are, Chris. You're amazing, Chris. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise.
No,
because then they're going to have to deal
with me.
You're great.
Colby, call in. Colby, call back in, please.
Yeah, you're good
enough.
enough.
Wait here all night for you to call back in. Colby was here. He was down below. He had StreamYarded in, and then he left. So I'm trying to make an announcement for Colby. This is an SOS.
I was trying to imitate Stuart Smalley. Now I would be doing it for the third time. It's probably not funny, but I'm good enough. I'm great enough. And gosh darn it, people like me. Nunya,
that's because I interrupted you the first two times.
Nunya, we're past the end of the show, so I'm going to leave you off. But we will, if Colby wants to come back in really quick. All right. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, Nunya.
Hey, guys.
Next week, Nunya. Okay, same time.
Yep.
Same place.
So convince me, Kobe, in 3 minutes or less that LDS leaders truly think they're special witnesses. They're apostles with real priesthood authority.
No, I don't. Well, I can't convince you of that. If that's the argument, I can't convince you of that. What I can convince you of.
Then they're liars and bullshitters because they claim to be apostles, special witnesses of Jesus Christ who have the priesthood authority. Okay, go ahead.
I feel like you're looking at this a little too black and white, Bill.
Yeah, the way I see it is they really believe in the institution of the church. So they really do, in their heart of hearts, believe that there's real magic in the world. They just change their expectation of what it looks like. The piece of evidence I would give you for this, Bill, is when Eyring talked about receiving revelation. Like he was in some press conference where he was asked, like, what was your biggest surprise from when you became an apostle? And he gives this story of, it was basically like any work meeting. Like it was just like a normal conference room meeting. He says, like, we all get around a table, we all talk, and then the will of the Lord is made clear. Like,
I think it was when he had been called to be president of BYU Idaho or Rick's College. And now he's in a meeting with some higher ups and apostles, and one of them was Harold B. Lee, I think. He described as being in the meeting, right?
Right.
I'm so sorry. You go ahead.
No, that's
I just remember because I've seen it so many times.
Yeah, and I don't have it exactly right, but the point of the story is that they do really convince themselves that the church is true, but they definitely do know that the church is not true in the way that the members believe it. That I 100% agree with you on, Bill. Like they know they're lying deep down. They wouldn't call it that though, because they're helping people. Like this is built into the theology of Mormonism in Doctrine and Covenants 19, that Christ himself says he lies to people about the consequences of going to hell, right? He's saying it's written eternal punishment because eternal is my name, not because it won't have an end. And so I see it the exact same way. The leaders really do believe, like when you look at the Mormon League stuff, and here's the second piece of evidence. When you look at the Mormon League stuff and they're sitting there listening to videos, like presentations by Gong about how pirates are becoming a popular movie franchise, and that is bad for the church because it disrespects traditional authority roles. Like, you're not doing that if you don't actually believe that you're doing something effective. Like, they really are just this delusional that they think that's the way they receive revelation. Like, they think they're doing the will of God by doing the most mundane things possible. But I really do believe they think they're doing the will of God. Because if those leaks, like if the theory that they're frauds was true, the WikiLeaks stuff would have confirmed that. And instead what we see is a bunch of doddering fools, not like someone like David Miscavige. That would be my case.
So the counter argument, and again, I'm going to just make a quick point, and then again, I think this is one of those conversations that can be argued from both sides.
Sure.
When I look at, I'll use the gospel topic essay. When I look at the polygamy one, what they want to say, not say, keep out, keep ambiguous, obfuscate over it requires scheming. It requires smart people scheming. You have to get people in the room and go, well, we don't want to say this, but we do want to acknowledge that. We don't want to go here. We don't want to leave this. The moment you scheme to that degree, you're just a schemer. You're just a pathetic
No, that's the black and white part to which I take exception, Bill.
That's fine.
I'm not just a schemer. I always think there's a band, kid.
Okay. You won't, again, RFM and I have been debating this for years, and I don't think I'll ever be able to convince him. And I don't think
I've been right every time.
And I don't think he'll ever convince me. But there are, and when I get, by the way, this conversation is probably the most asked question when people meet me in real life. They ask, Bill, do you think they know? And I always say, RFM thinks this, I think that. I think it can be argued from both sides. And people, when they respond, it's about 50-50.
But, you know, I interrupted Colby, and the point he was driving to, which I probably intercepted and exploded, is that there's this idea that we have of revelation. God's prophet receives the revelation from God, either in person or via lighted pen in the middle of the night, and he's receiving these messages directly from God's mouth. Now, President Eyring talks about how he thought that's what he was going to see when he's in this meeting now with the apostles and with Harold B. Lee, who may have been the president of the church at the time. I'm not sure. That was back for what, less than a year in 73 or something, 72 to 73. Anyway, but that's not what happened. Instead, they just all talk about what they think should be done. And it goes around and around as they continue to talk about what they think should be done. And they don't line up. They're heated. They're in opposition to each other. But he says, you know, the amazing thing was that as they continued to talk around and around and around, I mean, how long was this meeting really? Their opinions started to line up and they started to agree with each other. When they realized and finally found out what, you know, Harold B. Lee was saying, I'm sure they lined up pretty quick after that. Duh.
Didn't that happen in my bishopric, though? I mean, that happens at every level of the church. That's not special.
I just feel like you're making our case, though. I think that's the point. Like, the reason I know that they have good intention is because I did the same thing on a micro level, and I thought I had good intention. I had convinced myself that the miracles we see in the Bible were a descriptor to help us experience a feeling, and that feeling was real, that the magic was real. So it's the thing that's so crazy about it is you just change your definitions slowly over time.
They lie about everything.
Yes, because they believe it's true.
You have to convince yourself that you're a good person while getting up every day and going, I have got to carefully craft everything I say and do. I just don't buy it. I'm
it must
sorry.
be exhausting. By the way, the end of that story, the epilogue of that whole story, is that President Eyring then realizes that this is not the way the church receives revelation. The church receives revelation in a way that's remarkably like any other business meeting happening anywhere in the world. And so he redefines revelation to be what it is that he saw, but he still believes the church is led by revelation.
Yeah. When I was in the church, I had this apologetic like scripture chase I would do, where I would tell people that if you really look closely at the road to Emmaus story in Luke 24, I think it is, you have these two people that the text records them as being disciples. And Christ, the resurrected Christ, appears to them and walks with them on the road to Emmaus. And the scriptures are very specific, saying that they do not recognize who he is, but that he teaches them the scriptures as they walk along the path, and that they feel the Spirit burn within them. And the second that they start to realize that the prophecies are talking about this person that they're talking to, he disappears. And they say right after he disappears, like, how did we not realize it? Not because they recognized Jesus, because they were his disciples and they should have recognized him physically, but that they say, did not our hearts burn within us while we walked with the way with him? And while he unfolded to us the scriptures, at least I can only speak for myself, Bill.
Let me say it differently.
That's how I convince myself.
Let me say it differently. Somewhere in the last 20 years, there has been an apostle who knows the church isn't true. Knows that this thing is unhealthy and it lies and it cheats and it makes lots of money and it carefully words, and they can't say anything because whatever the mechanisms are, there's so much of a consequence for coming clean. Like Matt, what's the gentleman out of
Coming Clean?
No, the 70 who left the church, and Hans Mattson. Somebody figured it out in the top leadership of the church, like Hans Mattson did. But whatever happens when you get in, whatever you agree to, whatever you sign, whatever promises you make, you can never, ever, ever go back on coming into that top 15.
But like even Hans, that's such a good example though, because when he talks about the second anointing, he talks about how it's like an Emperor's New Clothes style thing, or an Emperor's New Clothes thing. Like you convince yourself that it really is there. Like, because he stated, it's not like he left the church immediately.
He figured it out.
But
some of them did too. Some of those top 15 did too. And they know it. They know it like Hans knew it.
But I guess I'm just saying he didn't. Like he talked about how he expected Jesus to be in the room when he went because that was the promise. He didn't leave the church right after that promise wasn't fulfilled, right? He lowered his expectations gradually and he did eventually break. But I'm not saying you're wrong that maybe that hasn't happened with some of them and they just go along with the delusion. But I think the vast easier explanation for the majority of them is they're sincerely convinced that there's magic and they just lower their expectations.
How do you think they look in the mirror and go, I'm a really shitty human being?
Because they don't believe they are.
They
don't think that.
System.
Bill, we had this conversation, and this was years ago, and I remember I was walking, it was night, and I was talking to you, I'm talking to you on my cell phone, and we were talking about how the leaders of the church act like the Pharisees we read about in the New Testament. And you asked me, do they know that they're Pharisees? And I said to you, no, of course they don't know that they're Pharisees. The Pharisees didn't know that they were Pharisees. If they knew they were Pharisees, they would stop acting like Pharisees.
Well, even like look at like Nazi Germany, Bill. Like not every person who did terrible things in the name of the Third Reich, like I think the thing we learn about humans universally is that it's like that frog boiling in the pot metaphor. Like we get acquainted with things and these Overton windows or whatever, our cultural mores shift. And I really think that's the easiest explanation. It's just that they really do deep down believe that there's something special here. They just lower their expectation of what it is to the point where it's nonsensical.
To the point where there's nothing special here. There's nothing special.
Do you think that Jeffrey Holland does not believe the LDS Church is true?
I think Jeffrey R. Holland makes so much money doing this. You guys go, oh, they get a stipend of $200,000, whatever it is. No, guys, Enzio Bushy tells Grant Palmer that they get $1 million when they get in. I've also been told by someone that they get access to an escrow account using a debit card that they can get essentially anything in their day-to-day stuff. They get free housing. They get free health insurance. They get free automobiles. They get free education for their kids. these guys are making, let's just say they're making $500,000 a year. No, you're going to keep it going. You're going to just keep it going. That's what people do when they're in systems and the systems reward them this heavily. By the way, to my point, the SEC violation, no, but 15 men don't commit an illegal act to raise their company money for which they will never be able to take out that money from. Only someone who has access to those funds and is building up their own pool of spending money does that act.
Unless their motive is not personal enrichment, but glorifying the name of God and his church with the offering of riches.
Yeah, I don't. You'd have to tell me show me another church that committed illegal acts for which the leaders who committed the acts didn't get the payoff. By the way, folks, I wrote the question out to the viewers. I just put a link in the live chat. You can click that link, go to our survey on the YouTube channel, and let us know whether you think they're pious frauds or intentional deceivers.
Yeah, because it's an interesting discussion either way. Wasn't it Sam Nieves when he was on the show said that the Mormon church was unique and uniquely dangerous or / evil? I can't remember the adjective he used, because they weren't in it for their personal enrichment. They were in it for the enrichment of the church.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say, is the SEC, they specifically found that there was no intention to enrich any individual person or to engage in market manipulation. Because if they were engaged in market manipulation, the fine and the penalty would have been way heavier. It was.
They're not doing that for sure. And by the way, I don't know that this is evidence for one side of the argument or the other, but I think we all agree the kind of human being that makes it into the top 15 has already proven themselves to be of an unhealthy ego, that they will be loyal to the system over being a good human being.
100%.
They've already demonstrated that over and over and over again. They're the worst among us in terms of pride and greed and willingness to do horrible things that hurt others but promote themselves. All right. Anyway, I love it. Okay. Have a great day, Colby.
Hey, Colby, thanks for joining us.
Yep. See ya.
See you later.
Hey, Kendall, I don't mean any offense, but it's 9:49. We're going to take off if that's okay. Because I already kicked the other person out, and I'd feel really bad if I took you on. So call in next week on the show down there, my friend. Sorry about that.
Kendall, nice seeing you though.
Sorry, my
Have
friend.
a great weekend, okay?
All right. 9:49. It was a great show, and I know the argument. I can't come down that way, and you can't come down the other way, and I think it's a fun thing about us that we disagree on that issue.
Yes. Well, we're just going to have to part ways because obviously we can't get along.
Yeah, and we ought to part ways here sometime in the next minute or two. So.
As Dan Vogel said, memorably, I do not require my friends to agree with me.
No, that's the nice thing about being on this side of life is the disagreement. Curiosity is, I think, the really cool trait on this side of things. Certainty was the cool thing on that side of things. Mm-hmm. Curiosity is the cool thing on this side of things. And the only way you can exercise curiosity is to surround yourself with people who are smart, who disagree with you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Good point.
Take us home, my friend.
Thank you so much. Everybody, thanks for joining us on this Friday night for Mormonism After Dark. Feel real a pleasure as always. Thanks to everybody who called in and those who attempted to but couldn't. Sorry about that. Hope to see you next week. And please join us tomorrow for Radio Free Mormon at 7:00 p.m. Mountain Time. That's going to be How Did Joseph Know? The Jaredites. And then Mondays, the newscast at 6:00 p.m. Mountain Time. We'll see you later. Have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Take it easy.